So I want to go to my audience first, and I've had them thinking about what their story of the year is. Who wants to go first? Oh, lots of people want to go in here. I'll go to yourself at the back first. Yeah. Yeah, yourself.
Yeah. So it goes without saying that we had a superb year in sporting achievements for our country, both in women and men's national teams, and then in the Olympics to top it off. And I myself am a coach of soccer or football, whatever your preference is. And I can see from the younger kids that the sporting achievements that we made this year has been a huge motivation and inspiration for them. Like, especially with the younger kids, you can see them like shadowboxing, trying to imitate Kelly Harrington. Just really nice to see.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it, how it really, you can see it at ground level. Yeah, just down here in front, yeah.
Katie, yeah, I think it was a huge year for the economy and business. I mean, record employment, low levels of unemployment, and the Exchequer has so much cash. So I think we have a lot to be optimistic about for 25 with all the money we have to spend. OK. Optimistic there. Yes, yourself? Then I'll come over to this side. Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, you can't look at 2024 without looking at what's happening in Gaza at the minute. There's estimates that suggest that 200,000 people, potentially more have been killed. And a lot of top organisations, including like myself, I'd consider it to be a genocide at the hands of Israel. And I suppose it all sort of culminated in the whole closure of the Israeli embassy recently enough. And I think as well, like I live in Swords, and ASL are based in Swords, and they've been transporting weapons, through Irish airspace and stuff. And I just think, unfortunately, that's kind of what we're going to look back at 2024 is with great shame and great sort of disbelief. Like, how do we allow this sort of stuff to happen? Unfortunately. Okay,
well, that's obviously a very contentious issue. The whether or not Shannon has been used to transport weapons into Israel. Thank you for that, and we will be discussing the Gaza question with the panel later in the show. Yourself, yeah.
Okay, not to show us to have a discordant note, but we have a war on our own continent in Europe, which is little forgotten about, and the wanton destruction of whole generations of mainly young men in Russia and Ukraine is absolutely happening at our doorstep. There's no urgency in the EU about it. There's no urgency to solve the problem, none whatever. And it's a desperate situation, desperate.
It definitely has dropped down the agenda since the Palestine war. You had your hand up, yeah?
Yeah, I suppose Paul Mescal and Gladiator was a very big moment for Irish film. I suppose, yeah, we haven't really seen a lot of big movies coming out of Ireland, but yeah, no, it was great to see Paul Mescal take a big role in the world stage.
Yeah, another massive year for Paul Mescal and for Irish cinema. I'm going to have to go back to my panel. I may try and get back to the audience again. Ivan, I'll go to you first. It's a big political year there. We heard some of the political stories and national, international stories. What was your one for you?
Well, the story that I picked out in Ireland, obviously what happened with the Republicans winning was a huge story, but in the first week of April, the Supreme Court made a decision on a judicial review to reject one of the biggest housing developments in the country, 1,593 apartments right in the centre of
That was your news story of the year. I was asking for your political story.
My political story was the success of the Republican Party, because people are, rightly focusing on Trump. But if you actually look, the Senate, 53 votes to 47, became Republican. The House of Representatives, 220 to 215, the Republicans won. Now, this is an existential threat for Ireland, because their big economic idea in corporate America is to reshore what has been the success story for Ireland. So right as we speak today, the German government has collapsed. Last week, the French government collapsed. And yet we're rolling in money down to one thing, and that is corporation tax. In 2014 was 4 billion, now it's 30 billion. It's paid for everything, and it's a complete outlier in the world. And a lot of people have their eyes on this. And if you look at the top taxpayers in terms of Microsoft, in terms of Google, and in terms of Apple, they account for nearly 40% of this 40 billion. And if Trump is successful and the Republicans are successful at transferring the IP, the intellectual property, to America, this is a huge risk. So it's not a global recession, it's a fiscal exchequer risk. Plus, the other big firms, Pfizer, MSD, Johnson & Johnson, he's proposing tariffs because we're exporting those pharma and chemicals into the US. So what I'm saying is that we really need to have some diplomatic, because this is a uniquely Irish problem, approach to this in a time when Ireland's influence is going to wane in Washington, and we need to bring our A game to protect what we have.
Do you say we should be nicer to Donald Trump?
Well, what I'm saying is this: we need to convince the boardrooms of corporate America that it's in their interest to stay here.
Fintan O'Toole, you have spent quite a bit of time in America in recent years. Did it surprise you, that the Trump victory?
Somewhat. I spent 4 days in Chicago at the Democratic Convention, which was an extraordinarily energized event. And I suppose to some extent I drank the Kool-Aid. I mean, I did begin to think that the age factor, you know, which was killing Biden, was going to transfer itself to Trump. And you have to remind yourself, of course, that nothing that applies to any other human being on the planet applies to Trump. You know, there are no rules, there's no logic, there's nothing that you can say that, you know, Americans were really, really angry that Joe Biden was so old. They just don't give a damn about Trump's age. And they don't give a damn about any of his criminality. They don't give a damn about the fact that a jury of his peers essentially said he was a rapist. I mean, they just don't care about it. So the extent of it did surprise me. I mean, it was a pretty clean sweep, as Ivan said. Of course, in the, you know, the overall vote, it's still relatively tight, but he won the Electoral College very easily. And in one way, I think it's sort of positive, right, which is the worst circumstance would have been if Trump won the presidency, Republicans won the Senate, and the Democrats kind of held on narrowly to the House, for example. Because then Trump would blame the Democrats for every screw-up that he's going to make. And by the way, he is going to screw up enormously. I mean, he's staggeringly incompetent. We've seen it before. I mean, he can't govern. He's not interested in governing. It's all going to be about vengeance. It's going to be the most massively corrupt government that a democracy has ever seen. Trump's mostly interested in self-enrichment. But underneath that, there will be serious people operating with agendas. And certainly one of the agendas is going to be tariffs, absolutely.
OK. Your own political story of the year is closer to home.
Well, in terms of the international stories, I was going to talk about Gaza, but
we'll
if you want to talk about
that, but in terms of the Green Party and...
Well, yeah, I mean, I think for our general election, in a way, the story was obviously Ireland bucking the trend. Incumbents have been thrown out in pretty much every election, whether it's South Africa, you know, whether it's, I mean, all across Europe.
Did it help that we had the billions of corporate tax?
Of course it did. Of course it did. I mean, the reason why the incumbency was okay here was because, uniquely, our governing politicians have been able to govern without making choices, you know. They don't have to say, yes, if you want all those lovely things, we're going to have to raise your taxes. You know, they can say, we're going to give you tax cuts and spend more money and, by the way, also bring down the national debt at the same time. I mean, this is nirvana for politicians. But actually, the big underlying story of the election was the decision, which was pretty, you know, across the board by the electorate to kick the Green Party. At one level, and Ivan would know this very well, I mean, there's nothing unusual about the smaller party in a coalition getting a drubbing. That's you know,
that's
standard.
Traditional almost here.
But this was bigger than that, actually. And two things were really fascinating about it. One was, if you looked at the exit poll, the very same people who had probably gone in to vote to get rid of the Greens were saying in the exit poll that the outgoing government had not done enough to tackle climate change. Yeah. More than half of the people were saying it hadn't done enough. Only about a fifth were saying it had gone too far. So the public still seems to want more action on climate change. And talk about the fiscal risks. There's the other massive fiscal risk, which we did not talk about during the election. Inconveniently, the Irish Fiscal Advisory Council came out last Friday, a week after the election, and told us, people have been talking about it's going to cost us $8 billion to buy credits. We're going to give $8 billion to other governments because we can't get our act together on climate change. No, it's not $8 billion, it's $20 billion. this is an enormous iceberg that's just kind of waiting for the next government. So you have this very strange situation where we've decided to sort of get rid of the Green brand, but like it or not, the incoming government's going to have to be the greenest one we've ever seen. And how it manages that contradiction is going to be, I think, at the heart of how it functions.
OK. Elaine, what caught your eye? It was also the election. And
it was the election, and actually the viral clip of Simon Harris in the famous Canturk gate, I think, was quite amusing. We're going to that later on.
We can look at it right now. I think this is just a little short clip from that massively viral clip from the last week of the election campaign.
But there's been no mention in the budget whatsoever. You ignored them, you ignored the carers.
That's not true to say that.
Yes, you do. It has not been mentioned. Keep shaking hands, pretend you're a good man. You're not a good man.
Okay, well, if you don't think I'm a good man.
Because you don't care.
Right. That was a big moment in the election.
That was a very big moment, but I think if you look at it, I think it is the kind of personification of what has maybe gone wrong with politics and general election campaigns, and maybe why the actual narrative of what's important, like Fintan was saying there, the climate and the green agenda, it's getting hijacked by these little moments on social media, the almost TikTok, Instagram things that get the headlines, but they don't look into the deeper issues behind it. Yes, you have to campaign very hard when you're on the road. Yes, you are going to get moments like that. But I'm sure years ago when you were pounding the turf, Ivan, there was nothing like that.
Well, on a daily basis, you would meet a row. And someone who is against you, and the rules is disengage, don't give tit for tat.
But had you been shown in that, and I'm sure you might have had one or two instances like that, then no one else saw it, so it was fine, maybe just a few people around you. But now everything you do from morning till night, from the minute the election campaign starts, is scrutinised. And it's almost like it's showbiz, it's social media, or politicians or influencers now on top of everything else. And we sometimes forget they're human. The physical toll of doing a campaign like this is massive. And I think particularly for some really good, really effective politicians and have done a lot of good during their lifetime in politics, I think it does them a disservice to kind of concentrate on these micro moments of a campaign.
Do you not feel his response should have been more human-like in that moment?
Of course. Listen, I'm from down the road from Canturk. I know these people. It's a super value I have been in quite often myself. And yes, it was dismissive, hugely dismissive. But I think the fact that it went so wide and overshadowed so much else that was very, very important. And don't get me wrong, I think the way carers are treated in this country is appalling.
Yeah, I'd say it took a lot for that woman to speak up in that moment.
Yeah, but I think that just really showed that perhaps a moment like that overshadowed everything in the last week.
Also, Elaine, in a way, I mean, there is a boomerang effect here. The person who became the TikTok Taoiseach, the person who, got to where he is,
by his own petard.
Not on the basis of any fantastic record in government, but actually of being very, very good at, tapping into social media. It bites you.
What goes around comes around, is what you're saying. OK, Aisling, I want to get you in because obviously it was a massive year in sport as well. We touched it there, the audience. So asking you to pick your favourite sporting highlight of the year is a big one, but...
Very difficult, yeah. There's 3, 4 that could come to mind. Obviously, we had the Olympics and all the success there. Kelly Harrington, back-to-back goals was incredible. Yeah, Damien Duff and Shelburne in the League of Ireland. Damien has just been unbelievable for the League of Ireland this year. Obviously, we all know him for playing for the Republic of Ireland, over 100 caps, 400 appearances in the Premier League, and he comes back after being with Celtic on the coaching ticket there to the League of Ireland, and he goes on and wins the league with Shelburne, their first since 2006, so it was massive there. Ciara McGeehan as well, I have to mention her, 1500 metres in the European gold. She'd won bronze, she'd won silver, and she finally had her moment. So it was amazing to see, but my moment of the year for sport was Kerry winning the LGFA, the All-Ireland final. Louise Nimera-Hurtig. You like this one, Katie?
Katie, the Kerry one, don't you know?
This was great. This was one of the most enjoyable matches I've ever actually watched.
I think for me, being there reporting on it, I just will always remember it in the scenes. That's Louise Nimera-Hurtig that's lifting the Brendan Martin Cup.
Explain to people why that was so special.
It was so special because I think in sport, as we all know, you get a lot of highs and lows and you don't always have that fairy tale moment. And I think with Louise, we thought she deserved it. She's this player who's done it time and time again. This is her 17th season with Kerry, and we just thought, it might not happen for her. She might be one of those players who's given everything and she won't have that pinnacle sports moment. And it happened. 31 years they've been waiting in Kerry for this All-Ireland in the ladies' side of things, and it was amazing for her to do it. And as well, you have to mention the managers, the co-managers, Darragh Long and Declan Quill. They've had great belief in this squad, and it was incredible to see it because she deserves it. She's brilliant on the pitch, off the pitch, and she set the tone from the minute one in that game. 6 points, set up a goal. She was incredible, so I was delighted to see it.
It was incredible performance from her, incredible from the whole team. It was really fantastic. I'm delighted you picked that one.